good job at managing hurricane relief in Georgia and North Carolina?
They can't allocate funds. That's the job of Congress.
Well, they can. They actually spent $1 billion of FEMA money on illegal migration.
Okay, but will you answer the question? No. Was it wrong for them to deny relief to Georgians, North Carolinians, and Tennesseans?
It's not what happened.
Israel?
That's not what happened. But I'm asking you, has Kamala Harris and Joe Biden done a good job of helping the people of Georgia and North Carolina?
So we're just not going to answer the question?
I said that's not what happened. So we're getting back to it. So it's a false premise, right? But I'm asking something that maybe we can agree on. Can you at least say that Kamala Harris and Joe Biden have failed the people of Georgia?
I disagree. They can't get funding from Congress.
FEMA has plenty of funding. They've decided to spend that.
This is what kills me. This is what kills me. The SSP program, to Charlie Kirk's point.
It's like, dog, if y'all can't trust them to get nothing done through Congress, then why are y'all voting them in? Like, what's the point of, all right, what's the point if y'all gonna have this excuse for them? What's the point of voting them in? Then y'all should have voted for Trump so y'all can at least blame someone. Oh, he has the Congress, he's Republican, what's going on? But every time we ask y'all something, it was like, oh, well, they didn't do that because they didn't have Congress. Oh, she's just vice president. It's like y'all give this lady or this administration every excuse to fail for y'all, to fail on y'all. Every time they fail, y'all give them an excuse. That's why nothing gets better with this administration.
Money on non-FEMA related matters, such as southern border
That's fake.
invasion.
That's fake news.
Over $1 billion has been used on luxury hotels and migrant resettlement.
Okay, will you answer the question? Do you think it was wrong for the Republican congressman to withhold aid for Israel?
They did not withhold it. The FEMA bill has passed before. FEMA is fully funded, and again, you're very stuck on the issue of Israel, and you're kind of conflating with two different things.
Well, because this is a serious issue. We could have put our country first and give our country aid, but our congressmen that are supposed to represent our country withheld aid so they can send it overseas.
That's not what happened at all. No. So I'm happy to keep on saying that, but for the fourth time, fifth time, sixth time.
So do you disagree
can we at
with
least
their action?
agree? Can we? Yes, if that was the case, I would disagree with it, but that's not what happened. So I'll even grant you the hypothetical, okay? But let me ask you a question. You're wearing a White Dudes for Harris shirt.
Yeah.
Okay. What is her great...
Are you a cuck?
greatest accomplishment?
Being an idol for idol.
One second. So tell me what she has ever done that you think is great, an achievement that she should be president.
A woman's your idol?
Being vice president.
You gotta think.
Is Mike Pence your idol?
No.
I understand that one.
He didn't break the glass ceiling like she did.
So,
wow,
let me just ask you.
The glass ceiling?
What has she done for you in the last...
Yeah, very iconic. Very iconic. Sleeping with a married mayor to get your entry into politics. Very iconic, man. Very admirable.
Not him.
Very demure, as they would say on Twitter.
No.
I understand that one.
He didn't break the glass ceiling like she did.
So, let me just ask you. What has she done for you in the last 4 years to make you view her as an idol?
I mean, she's just the vice president. She can't do much, but
wow.
I think just being herself, you know.
But you've idolized her for not doing much. She
Bro.
broke the glass ceiling. That's why I said Kamala's really just a mascot.
Do you not know the job of the vice president? One, you're president of the Senate. Two, you're supposed to handle all foreign relations for the president. Yes, the vice president's supposed to be going out talking to the foreign leaders on behalf of the president. So the fact that we have terrible foreign relations shows that she failed. A terrible border policy because one other job the vice president is whatever the president appoints to them. She failed on her appointed position and she failed on two of her actual positions.
Being a real boss.
So let me ask you about her view, because I'm actually of a slightly different view. I don't think that somebody else held a sign that says Kami Kamala. I think that's giving her too much credit, actually. I don't think, to be a communist, you have to have views. She doesn't have views. And I guess I'll leave it to you, where 4 years ago she said that she would end the filibuster to ram through the Green New Deal. Now she says she's not in favor of it. What is your view on her change of position on that matter?
I don't really care.
Okay. 4 years ago...
So why are you voting for her?
Well, just because I said she's an idol for the Democratic Party.
So she was against a ban on... She was in favor of a ban on fracking 4 years ago. Today she says she's not against it. Is that something an idol would do, is to change their mind without explanation?
I don't think fracking is a big deal.
It's a big deal to a lot of Americans, but I'm not even asking about whether it's a big deal. She changes her mind on a big question that matters to a lot of people. You're totally fine with that, keeping her idol.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, Kamala Harris, she wants to, she said 4 years ago she wants to put a tax on unrealized capital gains. So that's going to wipe out a lot of the stock market and result in a Great Depression.
Me and you both know that's not going to happen. So
the things that she says she's not going to happen, that's why she's your idol. I'm just trying to understand when somebody who has told you one thing 4 years ago tells you a different thing today. See, I think if somebody's going to be your idol, at least make it somebody who's consistent about their actual belief or has beliefs rather than somebody who has none. That'd be my view.
And it shows a lack of sincerity because Kamala is shown to be, she's lived up to her nickname, Chameleon Kamala. She'll say one thing when it benefits her, and then she'll reposition her stance and pivot when it no longer suits her. And so I honestly, just based off of that alone, I couldn't vote for her to get in the president, because that would almost allude to the fact that she's campaigning on certain issues now, but when she gets into office, she'll reposition and turn about face and do something completely different.
She'll campaign on the perceived winning position.
Yeah. Whatever will get her in office.
Sad. So, I mean, she has no real stance.
Okay.
Thank you, man.
Thank you.
But I just in closing, though, what is the sales pitch for other white dudes to support Harris, would you say?
I would say because she's looking out for us, she's looking out for the country, and she's an inspiration.
But you say that you objected to sending money to Israel for the genocide. Do you disagree with Kamala Harris sending $200 billion to Ukraine?
She didn't do that. She's the vice president.
She actually casted a tie-breaking vote a couple times that did send money to Ukraine. She has voiced support for Ukrainian war and spoke at the Munich Security Conference. So you did. Let's just broaden it and be even more fair. Do you think
she's the vice president? She is the president of the Senate. She can. That's a power that she has as vice president. What are you talking about? Said, she couldn't do much as vice president, bro. She could have done a lot.
The Biden administration with Kamala Harris was wrong to spend $200 billion on the war in Ukraine?
I think it's open to debate about that.
One final question for you. All right. Do you believe that it is a disaster to select someone for the job based on their race and their gender?
It depends.
Because I'm actually talking about Tim Walz in this case. Another white dude for Harris. Yeah. So anyway, thank you, man. I appreciate it.
I have to say, he captured white dude for Harris energy perfect.
Yeah, it should be good. Okay, so I'll try to be as quick as possible because I have to go to class, but I want to go back to January 6th real quick. Let's just start with like a point of a common ground. Hypothetically, if one of our candidates had insurrected the government, or at least attempted to, do you think that candidate is eligible to be voted upon?
Well, the Constitution says no, but it wasn't an insurrection. No one's been tried for insurrection. And
you do realize that he's being tried on that.
No, he isn't.
He's actually not.
Well, not on insurrection, the specific statute, but he's being tried for that.
Insurrection is a very specific crime in the federal code. He is not being tried for insurrection.
What the hell? How the hell you say, he's not being tried for that, but he's being tried for that? It's like, bro, what are you saying? Like, he's not being tried for insurrection. Never got tried for it. So when I call him insurrectionist, is not valid. It's invalid because he never got tried on it. Never got convicted.
I understand that, but he's still being tried on that case, right?
No, he's being tried on the events of that day, which is not an insurrection.
No, well, okay, fine.
That I word is actually a super important word because that literally means armed rebellion to overtake the United States government.
Not necessarily. You don't have to be an armed rebellion.
It does have definition.
Which class are you going to? Which class do you have
next?
Ethics. Okay, so it's relevant.
Hold on.
So go to the Constitution. Section 3 of the 14th Amendment, though.
Yes.
Insurrection
Yep.
is the word that's used.
Indeed.
So there was actually insurrection and rebellion. So
Right.
there was widespread speculation about whether Jack Smith would bring this case against Donald Trump.
Indeed, yep.
He did not.
Do you
Because
know
the
why
legal
why did he do that?
And
Why
the
did he-
reason Jack Smith didn't bring the case
Insufficient evidence.
is that he would have lost 9-0 at the Supreme Court if he did.
Well, hold on.
Because
that's funny that you say that. Okay.
that's exactly the result that they had with a number of the cases that have gone to the Supreme Court as
Hold on.
well.
You say it would be 9-0 at the Supreme Court, right?
As it was on the case where Trump could be on the ballot, went to the Supreme Court, it was 9-0, hands down.
Okay,
so
This would have been 9-0 as well.
One of Trump's private counsels, one of his lawyers, right? I believe his name was
Name doesn't
Eastman.
matter.
John Eastman.
Eastman, correct. Is it not true that he also thought that his plan to attempt to coup the government, or attempt to, let's say, subvert the electoral process in 2020 would lose 7-2 at the Supreme Court, and then he later amended that comment by saying it would actually probably lose 9-0 at the Supreme Court. Do you understand that?
So what is the question you have as it relates to January 6th?
It's very simple. Okay, if one of our presidential candidates had attempted to coup the government, he is unelectable.
Obviously.
Correct. And you just deny the fact that Trump attempted to coup the government.
No, he did not. That's not what happened that day.
Okay.
What happened that day is he had a rally a mile and a half away from the Capitol.
Okay, sorry. Ooh. To everybody here, I implore you to read the first section of Jack Smith's court filings, or read the Wikipedia page, or read the one.
But you have to be honest. Half of that got thrown out by the U.S. Supreme Court on presidential immunity, right?
Do you think that?
Half of it is invalidated.
Do you think that was a reasonable Supreme Court ruling?
Of course, more than reasonable.
You really think so?
Yes, it was.
Okay.
So because it didn't give Trump the guilty plea, it wasn't a reasonable ruling? Like, bro, make it make sense, bro. Y'all is wild out here. So you hate the man so much. Well, because it didn't make him guilty, it was unreasonable. But when we say, hey, yo, he got took through a kangaroo court, y'all can't see it because, the man was found guilty. Okay, I get it.
You're nearly unanimous.
Even the liberal
justices. We're
pivoting.
Do you think, no, hold on. It's not pivoting. You have to be honest. Do you think Barack Obama should be able to be tried for war crimes for killing?
I have no interest to speak about anyone else besides Trump.
I'm saying this. Hold on. Your standard must apply equally. Presidential immunity means what happens when you do during president cannot be. You cannot have crimes brought against you if it's in your official code of business. You agree with that?
No, absolutely not.
Okay,
no.
And shout out Luis Venezuela. He says, Camel Harris, Camel, man. Hey, camel toe Harris, camel hair ass, all that good stuff.
No precedent in the entire
hold on.
history.
Yes, there is.
There is none. Absolutely.
Let me finish. Okay.
Go on.
Obama killed a U.S. citizen without due process on foreign soil. That is a war crime.
No, it's not. Wait, he went to legal counsel, correct?
But legal counsel can be wrong, man.
It doesn't matter.
I could bring that case in any jurisdiction across the country. He did not get First Amendment rights, Second Amendment rights, Fourth Amendment rights, Fifth Amendment rights, Sixth Amendment rights. They just drone strike a U.S. citizen. Imagine if the government just does that. They just come by and pop you in the head. That's illegal. And Obama did that. But however, I don't think Obama should be able to go to prison because you should get immunity as president against your actions, or else a president would never be able to do anything. But sure.
Okay. Regardless. Okay. Going back to January 6th. Okay. You do acknowledge do you acknowledge any of the voter fraud allegations or any of that?
Do you think Donald Trump committed a coup against the U.S. government?
He attempted to, absolutely.
So why do you believe he left the White House?
What do you mean, why did he leave the White House?
Because is somebody who's really leading a coup.
It failed.
Why did he call for the protesters to go home? I just think this idea...
No, he didn't do that, though, right? He waited 3 hours in the White House as multiple...
That's not correct.
No, that's not correct. Actually, he released a tweet around the time I would say the rioters were breaching the Capitol. He sent a text telling them to go home, but not only did Twitter kill the impression on it. They killed the reach on it. They blocked all the impressions, and then later on they took it off Twitter, and then they blocked bro's account. So when he said that to those people, they never got the message. Twitter deliberately blocked the message.
Oh, really?
Within 30 minutes. Within 30 minutes, he sent a tweet out and said go home.
No.
30 minutes.
Hold on. He said to stay. He said to remain peaceful, correct? Yeah. He told rioters to remain peaceful.
Hold on a second.
Does that make sense?
Peaceful and patriotically before anything ever happened at the Capitol.
He said that one time during his 1.5-hour speech at the Ellipse, correct?
Well, so you acknowledge he said peaceful and patriotically march.
I'm not a 4-year-old who analyzes the speech takes out one sentence from the speech and says it's all okay.
When did he ever say do anything violent?
He said to fight, or else you're going to lose your country.
It's
what
interesting.
Does that mean?
Do you know what else when he said fight after you got shot?
What does that mean?
Who says fight? Kamala Harris has it as her campaign slogan, fight. When we fight, we win. I heard every 20 seconds at the DNC.
Did Kamala Harris and the Democrats try to coup the government?
Well, actually, yes, it's interesting.
Right. Let's do it. Yeah.
Hold on a second. How did she become candidate? How many votes did she get?
She was on the ticket of Biden,
because of a coup. They removed a sitting president named Joe Biden and put her on the top of the ticket.
Who are you voting for? When you vote on a ticket, who are you voting for?
Well, actually, no. In the primary, you're only voting for Joe Biden, not Kamala Harris.
People aren't voting for her, correct?
In a primary campaign, Kamala Harris was not on the ticket, and you know that's correct. Joe Biden received 16 million primary votes without Kamala Harris as her VP, and all of a sudden they said...
I love how we're pivoting all the way out this. This is amazing. I love this.
No, you're the one doing the rabbit hole. I just want to ask a question, though. Who died on January 6th?
One person, or multiple police officers.
No, actually, one person died on January 6th, and it was Ashley Babbitt, an unarmed Trump supporter who got shot in the head by one of
Maybe she shouldn't have trespassed in the Capitol. I don't know. Yeah, I know. It's going to be a hard one. I will bite that bullet, absolutely.
Maybe she shouldn't trespass on the Capitol. So she deserved a headshot for protesting? That's what I'm saying, bro. These liberals is heartless. And, I'm telling you, it's the archetype. Like, you see, scrawny, weak. Just look at them. Look how you can push them over with 2 fingers. So
I always say the liberals got a uniform.
Man, the liberals do got a uniform. Bro, he just said, Ashley Babbitt. Well, she deserves to buy. Maybe she shouldn't have, what was it? Trespass on the Capitol, and I'm like, wow.
Bro, the most hateful rhetoric be coming from them, bro. Like, she deserved to die because of her political affiliation. Wow, you will never hear a Republican or a conservative saying that about a liberal. Like,
yeah, especially
regardless of how much we might disagree.
Yeah, especially if they're expressing the right to protest. But liberals don't like people who express their rights who express their constitutional rights because they're too afraid to.
Anybody who doesn't side with them or agree with them, bro, they can get it.
That's correct. Joe Biden received 16 million primary votes without Kamala Harris as her VP, and all of a sudden they said,
I love how we're pivoting all the way out this. This is amazing. I love this.
No, you're the one doing the rabbit hole. I just want to ask a question, though. Who died on January 6th?
One person, or multiple police officers.
No, actually, one person died on January 6th, and it was Ashley Babbitt, an unarmed Trump supporter who got shot in the head by one of
Maybe she shouldn't have trespassed in the Capitol. I don't know. Wow. Yeah, I know. It's going to be a hard one. I will bite that bullet. Absolutely.
Obama's death penalty now makes more sense.
Yeah, exactly. No, so the death penalty for walking through your own Capitol.
No, but you shouldn't be trespassing, trying to subvert the election results, correct?
Have you seen the video what happened? No warning whatsoever.
Absolutely, yeah.
Lieutenant Michael Berg pops her right in the head, and this guy says, oh, crime me a river.
No warning? Really? He pulled out the gun, and she jumped through the window.
What do you think about that?
What do you expect to happen?
Did you get mad about the death of George Floyd?
Yeah. I really don't care about any of this. I don't care.
Whoa.
See, that's what I'm saying.
Wow. When it doesn't fit your narrative, now you don't care. But Ashley Babbitt deserved to die.
Yeah, exactly.
Trying to subvert the election results. Like, come on, bro.
Actually, here's the craziest part, though. Like, bro didn't give her no warning. She was about to climb through. And here's the thing. We're talking about a grown-ass man gave a headshot at a woman. The man should be the biggest pussy in history at this point. You're talking about a woman, a woman that you could have easily just ran up on and pushed her back over, but instead you gave her a headshot. You attempt to give her a headshot. You shot her in the neck, a grown-ass man. And the thing is, this is what you liberals stand behind, a grown-ass man harming a woman?
Your argument falls apart when it's as flimsy as that. Like,
bro,
oh, you care about Ashley Babbitt, but you don't care about George Floyd?
I'm real with you.
Whose side is he on?
That's why I see most of you liberal men is weak, because look at what y'all go behind. Y'all will go behind a man hurting a woman. Wouldn't y'all? I bet y'all would if it fits your narrative.
And that isn't every liberal man, but if this guy speaks for y'all, then
man,
it's a sad state y'all in right now. Sad state.
And if he looks like most of y'all in a sad state.
It's irrelevant to this. It's relevant.
No, it's not. The whole country blew up for George Floyd, and yet a Trump supporter gets shot in the head.
I'll say one last thing.
Peacefully and patriotically protesting, and that's perfectly fine.
I implore all of you to read the first section of Jack Smith's court filing.
No one's going to read that crap, okay? Instead,
you know what? I'm not surprised.
No.
But we have gotten to the point where we don't trust the media, we don't trust our legislator, we don't trust the executive, we don't trust
You know
anything.
why? They haven't earned our trust.
Oh, right, true.
Wait, no. Let's go through the list. Hunter Biden laptop misinformation. Where did the virus come from? Biolabs in Ukraine. No, it's exactly, fine. It's okay. Go to your ethics class.
Quit.
So my name is Gerald, and my main question is, it's for Charlie. Why do you feel like the Civil Rights Act was a mistake?
So, parts of it were really good. Parts of it were not so good. So, for example, the way the Civil Rights Act was constituted is that now it is being applied in ways that it was never intended. And so the Civil Rights Act has now been used as this major overarching standard that is not just about ending bitter racial segregation, which I'm against and you're against, right? No person should ever be discriminated based on the color of their skin. What the Civil Rights Act has done, passed through multiple decades, is the law of unintended consequences. That it's created.
No, it's funny, bro. I had to rage quick because the people in the back were looking at him crazy, like, dog, you're embarrassing yourself.
And shout out Alex, $2. He's coming back in with a little bit of pushback. He says, how would they know she was unarmed? Kirk is pivoting.
Because everybody in January 6th was unarmed. Everybody in January 6th was unarmed. That's how you know she was. And think about it. If she was armed, why the hell would she let some man with a gun continuously point a gun at her without shooting him back?
Hold on a sec. What was she doing that was any more aggressive than any of the other rioters? What did Ashley Babbitt do to warrant being shot in that moment? Bro, she wasn't aggressing or moving forward in a way that was particular. She wasn't aggressive or doing anything that anybody else wasn't doing at that moment.
Bro, if you're a guy, usually said you'd have shot Ashley Babbitt, I'm gonna be real with you, you're a pussy. Because in that situation, I'd have pushed that girl through back the door. I'm like, man, I ain't gotta shoot this young lady. Man, get your ass back there. And guess what? When he shot that young lady and she's over there dying out bleeding, bro, the police was only like a few feet behind her. He didn't even have to shoot her. He just had to push her, but he ended up shooting her. And y'all standing on that? Y'all standing behind that. This is why y'all have no respect.
This leviathan within the Department of Justice. For example, let me give you just another example. I have like 100 of these. In the state of North Carolina, they wanted to say that you need voter ID in order to vote. I don't know where you come down on that issue. I think that requiring identification of vote is so normal,
y'all
so
the same party that cries about police brutality, though. That's kind of weird.
Ain't that wild?
That's kind of weird. But y'all over here saying like, nah, he should have shot her. He had to do what he had to do. But we talk about George Floyd,
bruh.
We talk about Mike Brown. We talk about any of these other people who have died in these police-involved shootings. But Ashley Babbitt deserved it. Like, come on now. Come on.
It is skin color. It's colorblind, right? Merrick Garland from the Department of Justice came in and sued and says you should not be able to ask for voter ID because of the Civil Rights Act, because it disproportionately hurts black Americans.
As a grown-ass man, if you're telling me you just shot Ashley Babbitt, a woman who's just sliding through there and she's unarmed, you're telling me as a grown-ass man with a gun you were going to shoot her? I'm be real with you, you're a pussy. You're a pussy. It's like, that's it. That's all I could really think of you as. Actually, any man would think the same of you. It's like, bro, any real man would have just been like, man, I don't got to shoot her. Just, man, get your ass back over there. And that's that.
So what would happen is the Civil Rights Act, it did not target discrimination. It targeted disparities. And disparities is different than discrimination. Does that make sense? So individualized discrimination, we've always been against. But what happens if you have one group that does better than another group? There are other explanations for that other than racism. Unfortunately, the Civil Rights Act, what it does is it goes back and says everything can be ascribed back to racism as our original sin. Now, let me just go one final point, is that the fanfare that the Civil Rights Act is met with, it's almost like the new Constitution. We talk about the Civil Rights Act more than the Constitution. It is cited more than the Constitution. We almost had a new American founding in the 1960s with the Civil Rights Act, which, again, I want to be very clear, and I've always been, no human being should ever be discriminated against because of the color of their skin. That is always something we've agreed with. But the Civil Rights Act has become almost the super constitution of the land.
So let me say a couple words, because this is actually something that's near and dear to my heart. The Civil Rights Act was part of a broader project that LBJ had called the Great Society. And one of the things, I'm a pragmatist, I'm a businessman by background. I look at the results. So let me share a couple hard facts with you, which is that it turns out that you're much more likely to end up in prison, you're much more likely to end up in poverty, you're much more likely not to graduate from high school if you grow up in a single-parent household versus a dual-parent household. Mm-hmm. Today, you're talking about upwards of 60% of black kids born into single-parent households rather than dual-parent. What number do you think that was in the 1950s before the Great Society?
Probably like 40.
It was even less, 20%.
Damn.
20% back then. So then we look at what the results have been of this entire agenda. Put the Civil Rights Act, put the LBJ Great Society. Black Americans are worse off today, even economically in terms of mobility, than they were back then, in the name of laws that were passed.
Yeah, we were more prosperous before that.
We depended on each other, not the government.
Yeah, interdependent in our own community. We shop with the black dollar, shop black businesses. There was a black Wall Street in Tulsa.
And that's because we depended on our people. We depended on our community, on each other, instead of government handouts. It's kind of something like we're doing today. For some reason, we haven't learned our lesson. We haven't learned the lesson that, well, these government handouts is what destroyed our community, what divided our community, and yet we're still asking for government handouts. Like, it wasn't the destruction of our community.
Well, I'll even take it a step further, and I'll say it was the deterioration of the nuclear family and the dismantling of the black home by removing the black father due to crack and incarceration.
Hold on. And, shout out to K1M1. He said, Alex, if unsure if armed, why not retreat and observe?
Yeah, facts.
Exactly. Especially
and
she's a woman.
And how is she going to brandish a weapon or use a weapon if she was
climbing through a window? It's like, bro, you're literally justifying a grown man hurting a woman.
They got batons, and I ain't going to lie, we got 2 fists. I would have beat her ass before I would have shot her. I'm just being honest. I would have beat her ass before I would have shot her.
And you know what the crazy thing is? Bro, they checked everybody before they even got on there. Nobody was armed. They ran into the crowd and found one man with a knife and gave it back to him. Bro, the whole January 6th riot, nobody was armed. Because think about it. If they was armed, and when they would have been popped off at the cops before they got in, like, why would she wait until, like, think about it. If they were armed people, would it have been popped off when the police was popping them with the gas cans and all that? Like, make it make sense. So, yes, everybody on January 6th was checked. They didn't have no guns. No guns. So your whole, well, you don't know if she was armed or not. Bro, she's a woman climbing through a window, and if she had a gun, would she just shoot through the fucking glass?
Advanced black interests. So the results haven't worked out so well. I want to just bring it back to this election. All right, and I'm going to ask you questions. This is not like it's a grilling, but more because you have no reason to know the answers to these. But We're close to politics, so I'm going to ask you these questions, all right? So what do you think? If you take the first 3 years of Donald Trump versus the first 3 years of Joe Biden, where we have data for it, were more blacks unemployed under Joe Biden, or were they unemployed under Donald Trump?
No, I think they were unemployed under Joe Biden.
That's correct. Yeah. So it's about 70,000 more black Americans were unemployed under Joe Biden. Now look at the ones who are actually employed. Of the black Americans who were employed, did they make...
And for those of y'all who say they were, honestly, this point could be disproven too. For those of y'all who think that the Capitol was stormed, no, the police were overwhelmed. We have video footage of Capitol Police, local police saying like, I ain't gonna lie, this was like a setup. Like they sent us up here undermanned, underarmed, and they have a large crowd here. Like they were set up to fail. So they were overwhelmed. The barrier that they had set up was broken due to the numbers, and there were verified agitators in the crowd, federal informants as well, and this is a verifiable fact. So there were people in the crowd who were bad actors, and those were the people that you could really say who pushed upon the barrier and made their way into the Capitol, and everybody else at that point was just following.
Bro, that's what I'm saying. When I said if I was that guy, I just pushed her through the window because, bro, if they was armed, then why didn't they just start shooting at that guy as soon as he pulled out his gun? This man been pulled out his gun before she even climbed on there. Like, let's keep it real. Like, if she was armed or she was of any threat, then it'd have been imposed off the rip. Why leave herself open?
Facts.
More money under Donald Trump or more money under Joe Biden?
I wasn't working, so I wouldn't even know.
Fair enough. It's about $1,500 more per year that black Americans earned under Donald Trump versus Joe Biden. You want to talk about the number of black Americans who own the home they actually live in? 700,000 more own the home they lived in under Donald Trump's years versus Joe Biden. So I end up judging on the basis of results. And this started since LBJ. This was a bribe. I think this was a bribe to black Americans, which earned 95 to 97% loyalty of black Americans to Democrats. That is the single most loyal group to any political party in the history of our country. 90 to 95%, 97% of black Americans tend to vote for Democrats. Without that, the Democratic Party is toast. You have been part of the most loyal group to the Democratic Party. The question is, what have you gotten in return for that loyalty?
I feel that.
And the answer is not very much, actually. And I think Donald Trump, when you judge based on the results, has actually given you at least results.
And, shout out to this particular young man. It seems like he came up wanting more so to get questions answered rather than a true debate.
It's a little bit different than the rhetoric along the way. And I do come down on the same side.
At least he's willing to admit it. Some black people will accept nothing. Just be like, but it's Trump. So you'll accept nothing because it's Trump? Okay, guy.
On the same side of Charlie with respect to the Great Society is that I think in the name of helping black Americans was disastrous. And I think what we would be better doing for all Americans is go back to the first Constitution rather than the second one that we reinvented.
So my question to Charlie, so you would if you had the opportunity, you would get rid of the Civil Rights Act?
No, I think you should have a one-page bill that says that racial discrimination based on race is illegal and will not be tolerated in the United States of America. I would simplify it. I would not have all... So what happened is that the Civil Rights Act has 9 different titles in it, and you have this Leviathan that was created, and something that most black Americans don't support is men and female sports. Would you agree?
Wait, say that again?
Men playing in female sports.
Oh, hell no.
Yeah, I know. No, for sure, right? Yeah. Believe it or not, the Civil Rights Act is now being used to keep men playing in women's sports. So the Civil Rights Act was used to help black America originally. Totally get that. But now the way it was written is that any claim of identification, so someone says, I'm a woman, therefore I can compete in your volleyball team, they come in with a civil rights claim. And so what we're saying is, no, it should be specified to racial, not gender, all that other stuff. And there were all these other provisions as well.
All right, and my last question, do you think if Trump come back into office, you think Young Thug is getting free or any these people in jail?
No.
You don't know Young Thug?
Who's getting free?
Young Thug. Is Young Thug getting free if Trump come back into office? And
no.
YSL,
would you vote for him if he promised a pardon?
Oh yeah, hell yeah! If Young Thug was coming back, we need new music and stuff. So I feel
we'll pass that along.
All right, appreciate that.
What's your name again?
Gerald.
Nice to meet you, man. Thank you. Super good question. Thank you.
I'm currently an undecided voter.
Guys, it's a joke.
Just because I would say that I'm not going to vote for Kamala. But there's one, I'm a single issue voter, and my issue is over immigration.
Most Americans are. He's an honest man for admitting that.
I think that the rhetoric that the Republican Party has had towards immigration since 2020, since 2016, has been very aggressive, right? I'm the son of immigrants. My parents came over in the early 90s.
What country?
Mexico.
Legally or illegally?
Illegally. They've been in this country for more of their life now than they've lived in Mexico, and they've been in the system of trying to get some sort of, citizenship or amnesty. But they have been phenomenal role models to me. They've raised 5 wonderful children, conservatively, traditional Mexican conservative values. So that's my issue, and that's why I feel like I cannot vote for Donald Trump, because it also feels like I'm voting against my parents, because I feel like the Republican Party, though I disagree with the Democrats.
So Vivek is uniquely positioned to answer this, because he's also the son of immigrants. So I want you to hear him out very carefully here.
Yeah, so look, this is a hard question because of the position, you're in, thinking about your family situation versus that of the country. But I'm asking you for a moment. It's a hard thing to do, but just to wear the hat of a citizen and then to put yourself back in your position and see how you see it. So, yeah, absolutely, but wear your citizen hat rather than, your family hat, even though that's a hard thing to do.
Right.
So here's what I would say, okay? If I was in the position of your parents, probably if anybody here were in the position of your parents in another country seeking a better life in the United States, and you've got presidents for the last, frankly, 5 decades, with the exception of Donald Trump, who have given you a wink and a nod to come over, probably most of us in this audience would have done the same thing too. I don't actually blame those people. I do blame the policymakers who created the incentives to enter this country illegally in the first place. And so the way I look at it is, my parents, they came to this country legally through the front door, and we're a nation founded on the rule of law. If we're founded on the rule of law, right, if that's one of the things, of all of the races and creeds and ages we have in this audience, if there's one thing that unites us, it's that we have certain ideals, like we believe in the rule of law. If we believe in that, that means your first act of entering this country cannot actually break the law. And so wearing our hat as a citizen, we got to have only consent granted to those who enter legally. And if you entered in a way that didn't follow the rules, that's where Donald Trump's coming from, to say that we need mass deportations, not because all of them are bad people, but because we have bad policies in this country that actually created those incentives in the first place. So don't take that as an affront or an insult to your parents personally, who I'm sure are good people to raise a young man like you, who's as thoughtful as you've been in asking this question. But when we're looking at what's in the best interest of the country, we're a nation founded on the rule of law. We got to follow the rule of law if we're ever going to revive an immigration system that actually makes sense and advances the best interest of this country. That's where I land.
I agree with that. I agree that when I put on my citizen hat, I can understand from a citizen's perspective, it makes sense. But I also agree with the point that it is not the fault of the people who crossed the border in the early 90s when it was fairly easy. It's the fault of the policymakers and the politicians. And it feels like
Donald Trump understands that. He's married to an immigrant, right? Other members of his family also have done the same. So I think, and I'm married to a kid of legal immigrants. I am one myself as well. So most of us in this country intuitively understand that. But I think the thing that's been extreme, so you brought up one of the reasons you have trouble voting for Donald Trump is because of maybe the extreme rhetoric on the issue of immigration. So the way I look at this is what's been actually extreme is our policies. What's extreme is 30+ million people crossing a border over the course of 4 years.
Or the lack of policy, for that matter.
You have 350,000 kids that have gone undocumented for. That actually is the extreme policy to which we demand, I think, an appropriate level of anger to marshal the energy to fix the problem. So, are you going to love everything Donald Trump says about this issue? Apparently not, and that's fair. But when you're looking at who's going to do what's best for the country, I still come down on the side of what's clear. Actions speak louder than those words. Follow the actions, and that's how we're going to save our country. Thank you, man. I appreciate it.
Thank you, guys.
I'd like to challenge you mainly on like a moral landscape versus like a political landscape, because I've not done my homework in the political realm. So I'd like to challenge you on like your views on abortion and homosexuality. Specifically Charlie, because I've consumed some way more of Charlie's clips. And so I watched a clip of you. I'd like to just confirm your viewpoint real quick.
I answer this at every tour stop. Yes, I do not believe in personally, my family would not allow an abortion under any case unless the life of the mother. That's correct.
Okay, so unless the life of the mother?
Unless the life of the mother, of which it would actually not be considered an abortion. It's a medical procedure called a septigectomy, but yes, abortion is the intentional taking of a fetus or a human life. Our family would never do that personally, correct?
Okay. And you were brought up a scenario where a young girl, 10, 15-year-old girl was raped, and you were asked, should she give an abortion, or is it more moral to not give or give this abortion? And you said the baby will be aborted, and I think
I said the baby will be delivered in the video.
The baby will be delivered. My bad. And I think that's quite harsh to expect someone of this age and this
got it. So
life
I
experience
have a question.
to have to do this.
Someone in this audience was conceived and raped. Can you tell me who?
No.
So I have two ultrasounds. One baby's conceived in rape. One baby was conceived by a loving family. Which one is which?
You cannot tell.
Yeah. So that therefore universal human equality spans to all people regardless of the method of your conception. Correct?
Sure.
So that is my position.
That is not exactly what I'm trying to tackle here. I'm trying to tackle. I want you to look more at the person having to give life to this.
And I like how he kind of steelmanned his argument by saying, this is my personal stance and this is how I and my family go about the view. But he did make a great point in that it's not necessarily about the inception of birth, but it's just the right to live. Like that child still maintains the right to live. And I can agree with that. I wouldn't say I completely parallel his view on abortion, but I can agree with the stance in that, regardless of the inception, that the child, shouldn't be victimized and shouldn't ultimately lose its life because of, some of the, even if it was incepted in I would say the wrong way or the, a way that we wouldn't want it to be incepted in. Like, I get it. I get his stance. I wouldn't say I personally fully agree, but I do get where he's coming from on that.
This baby and push it out of their body and go through a pregnancy and.
Well, let's ask another moral question then. Is it ever okay to do something evil after an evil act?
I want you to focus on my question real quick.
No,
first.
I've answered it. I've already.
No, you have not answered it.
Well, I said the baby will be delivered because, for example, murdering a baby is not the right thing after an evil. That's the moral position I have.
Sure, in a general statement, that is, I would agree. As a general statement, yes.
But no, so for example, under abortion, do you carve out a new morality? Is there like a different kind of morality that we apply only to abortion?
Well, it really is a case-by-case thing for me.
Really? So that's case by case? I mean, where in life do we do case by case? Don't we have universal human morality, such as you shall not murder, people deserve human rights?
I mean, sure, but
why should abortion be any different?
Because this, I believe the fetus or embryo or however you want to call it or whatever stage it's in, I believe it should not have the exact same rights as me or you.
So what species is it?
It is a human.
So then if it's a human species, doesn't it then get human rights?
Not necessarily.
Why?
Because there's a.
At what point does it get human rights?
I believe it gets human rights upon birth, and I think.
Upon birth. So even when it's 35 weeks, has a heartbeat, its own DNA, brain waves, can feel pain, touch, it can hear you. That baby doesn't get human rights.
Well, of course, it deserves most rights, but when you are
like which ones? Most rights.
He said most rights. He said 9 out of 10 rights, but that 10th right it doesn't get until you pop out. Like. And it's a tricky situation because it kind of depends. A lot of people will use religion to kind of back their stance either way. But I do get Charlie Kirk's point. Like, if you're a human rights activist and you believe in human rights and you think all humans have these rights and access to them, then it does start at the point of inception. Yes, now I understand there are special circumstances, and I have my own views on them. They don't necessarily parallel Charlie's. But I will say he does make a good point. Like, when do those rights start? Okay, if it's at the time of inception, then at no point should we just be deleting these fetuses, right? Like, they should have the right to life just as anybody else should.
Yeah. So if you were to, like, for me, if my daughter, was raped, I would 100% expect an option to not have this baby be born.
No, that's fine. We just disagree. You would be okay with murdering a baby. I would not.
why I think murder is a bit of a harsh.
So let me ask. You said you're case by case. Let me give you a case to react to. Pregnant woman walking down the street. She's assaulted. The unborn child dies as a consequence. Should that criminal be held liable for that death or not?
Yes.
Okay, so therefore we agree that that was actually a moral wrong and a crime that was committed, which means we have common ground, right?
Yes, yes.
And by the way, you're not alone in that. Nearly every pro-choice person I've met in this country says the same thing, that if the woman is assaulted, she's pregnant, the unborn child dies as a consequence. In that context, I haven't met a single person who says we don't treat that as actually a death, that criminal is responsible for. So that says we actually all share that same instinct in common.
Yes.
Let me just shift. We're on a diverse campus, as Charlie mentioned. We're here in the city of Atlanta. Let me just talk about Planned Parenthood for a second, because there's an agenda here. Right? It's not about these one-off, fringe theoretical cases. Planned Parenthood was built on...
that's actually a great point that he brings up, because that doesn't make up the mass percentage of abortions or medical abortions that are performed. That is low-key an outlier in that sense, that it doesn't make up the most cases. So he makes a great point. Most cases is people just making poor reproductive choices, and they lack the finances or the forethought to really carry the pregnancy through. Now they're in a Planned Parenthood, which is subsidized by the U.S. government, which we pay for ultimately, and now they're trying to abort mission.
A racist agenda to actually stop the birth of one race of people. That is the black race of people. And I know this may be controversial to say, but when you look at the number of deaths in this country, lynching ain't got nothing, actually, on the abortions that have occurred in this country targeted against one racial community. And so when I hear Kamala Harris walking around talking about reproductive rights, I can't stand it anymore, because they're effectively have an agenda preventing the reproduction of one class of Americans. And I think especially sitting where we are today, we got to recognize that racist agenda for what it is, too. So thank you, man. I appreciate the question.
I like to just push back a little bit, stay out of, the political realm, who said who said what, and...
Last word, and then we got to give other people a turn, all right?
All right, so where, besides the cultural landscape of my generation, personally I think my generation has started to abuse the abortion, the option of abortion, and that has led to our society, our
we
culture.
Agree. It started with Margaret Sanger, who was a racist, who was a co-founder of Planned Parenthood, whose effective objective was eugenics in the United States to stop black people and other categories of people from reproducing. That's the legacy before. It's the effect it's had, and it deserves to be called out. Thank you, man. I appreciate it.
All right.
Thank you. People. Thank you.
So, I kind of disagree. So, I am a registered libertarian, so I guess I align a little bit more with you, Vivek. Oh, right into the mic. Sorry about that. I'm a registered libertarian, and again, I'm kind of concerned about the tariffs. Being an Austrian-trained economist, my thinking on the situation is why not let China expand its credit and just fall into a debt trap spiral and, reap the rewards of, cheap goods from China, and then eventually they collapse.
So here's a real answer to that question. So as a libertarian, have you ever read Hayek?
Yeah.
You read The Road to Serfdom?
Yep.
Good. So in The Road to Serfdom, Hayek actually makes clear, and he's misunderstood today in the modern libertarian memory of it versus the real thing.
Yeah.
He says a nation cannot depend, for example, on an adversary for its own military. Let me ask you just a question.
Yeah.
Do you know which nation is the biggest supplier of the U.S. military today? You could probably guess it.
It's China.
It's China. So it makes absolutely no sense, for example, for the United States to depend on China as the number one supplier of our Air Force, our military, including our Army and our Navy. It just doesn't make any sense. 40% of the semiconductors made for the U.S. Department of Defense come from China. So even a principled libertarian, like one of the OGs, like Friedrich von Hayek, would tell you that doesn't make any sense, yet that's where we are today. Here's something also Austrian school economists would tell you is if somebody else is applying a big tariff or an unfair trading advantage to the United States, us saying that we have to play on a level playing field, that's not actually a violation of free market principles. It's a recognition that the market was not free in the first place. So those would be the two things I would leave you with. And if you look at Donald Trump's actual record in his first 4 years, that's actually the way he led. So that's where the actions speak louder than words.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah, you can.
If there was a policy that made markets more free but hurt your country, would you support it?
What do you mean by hurt the country?
For example, during the 1970s and 80s, we decided to shut down a lot of factories and send those jobs to China because it made markets more free and we could get goods cheaper, but it obviously hurt the country. So if there was a choice where it made markets freer and it did not hurt the country, would you support it?
No, because I think in the long run it actually helps the country, and I think Reagan's administration kind of shows that.
You see, I just approach it a little bit differently because we got three different views here. One is I don't actually think that it made markets more free. I think the idea of shipping those jobs to China when the government's actually subsidizing those industries was not actually the free market in the first place. It was some made-up mercantilist myth that the CCP took advantage of, laughing at a bunch of people who were at the old generations of conservatives from the 1980s who said that was free market capitalism, when in fact that it wasn't. So that's why
I used to be an Austrian guy. It's all a bunch of rubbish, right? Because it's never worked. And it never will work. It's all abstraction, staring into the sky. And let me tell you, when you go drive through Ohio and Pennsylvania, West Virginia, and you see the deindustrialization of this country, and we were told that it was a good thing, it just hasn't been. And so, again, I went to all the von Mises stuff. I went to all the Hayek stuff. The literature is very compelling, and there is some truth in the monetary policy of Austrian economics. That is the strongest component, where they argue business cycles need to be organic, not artificial, and that the money supply component of Austrian economics is great. However, when we get to trade, there needs to be a non-abstraction, more reality-focused way of looking at how we do trade, and we're just not going to necessarily agree on that. Here's my opinion, is that the ultimate principle should be, is it good for the country, not is it good for the ideology? Yeah. And we've been having policy that's good for ideology, not for the country.
Yeah, so a question I have more for Vivek. So I guess one tariff that definitely affects Americans that Trump's sort of having to come back around to is the electric car tariff. So I agree entirely with the national defense argument. That's part of the reason why Biden was in Angola, to help secure critical resources from the DRC. So I give credit to both candidates for doing that. But electric cars, right? Trump's now saying that, you get 25K.
So here's the deeper
deduction.
issue. If I may,
so why should taxpayers have to eat that cost instead of, Chinese people subsidizing it overseas?
So you get to the real problem when you start using the word subsidizing. Here's the real problem with the electric cars, is that taxpayers have been eating the cost since the advent of electric cars in the United States, because taxpayers are paying for some guy in California to buy an electric vehicle at the expense of a guy who wants to buy a gas-powered car in Georgia or in the state of Ohio. So that's the root cause in the first place. So I would say that, see, here's the thing, and this is where I actually really agree with the bang of Charlie's statement, which is we've never really had the libertarian utopia because we were never operating according to capitalist principles in the first place. So we've had, the state subsidies in the first place, and Donald Trump's in favor of this, by the way. Yeah. Like he says, and I agree with this too. I'm a friend of Elon Musk. I like the fact that he's got Tesla, and that's great. We just shouldn't have the taxpayers paying for other EVs. And the beauty of this is actually, if we got rid of the EV subsidies, a lot of people don't know this, Tesla would actually be better off because a lot of the other Ford and GM and inefficient makers are the ones relying on government largesse in the first place. And so, in some ways, we're in the worst of all worlds, actually. We're neither following Hayek or Mises, nor are we actually doing what's best for American workers or manufacturers, and actually pick either of those options, it's going to be better than the state of affairs that exists today. And I think Donald Trump, he's a pragmatist, he gets it. And so that's why to libertarians out there, you got to, you could look at a textbook and say that Donald Trump's not going to be your ideal candidate. But if you look at who actually over the course of 4 years in office better followed those principles, no doubt about it, it's not even the libertarian candidate for U.S. president this time, it's Donald Trump.
Hi, so my main concern for the Republican Party going forward is their insistence on tariffs. Trump has proposed somewhere around 60% tariffs of China and 20% tariffs on the rest of the world. This is extremely concerning. I mean, this is a return to Smoot-Hawley back in Hoover.
Yeah, so tell me why. So tell me what tariff.
I'm pretty sure we're only putting tariffs on things that we also make ourselves. So if we don't make it ourselves, I don't think we mind getting it from somewhere else because we were never producing it. But then again, though, if we want to start producing these items for ourselves, it will be a good idea to place tariffs. So it entices these countries to, to regain their profits. They'd have to bring it in here. They have to bring their jobs here. So I ain't gonna lie, yeah, that tariffs once again used as a damn near a bargaining chip. It's a financial tool. It can be used for good or bad. You can use it to destroy the economy. You can use it to entice businesses to come into your economy.
Tariffs currently, because we have over 300 of them on the books, that you think are currently harming the American economy?
So I don't know. I can't tell you exactly every tariff on the books.
Tell me one.
Okay. The tariff that Trump imposed on washing machines back in 2017, I believe it was. If you look at the statistics for household appliances in general, they have increased the price, and Biden has actually kept that tariff in play. And obviously, this is something that's kind of.
So, do you want to tell us? So, okay, so he put in tariff on washing machines, and what did Americans start doing? They started buying American-made washing machines because they were now the cheaper option. Or there was an increase in American-made washing machine purchases because now people are not just going off the price.
It doesn't strike at the core of consumers, but it's still if the tariffs increase across all goods, they will increase prices.
Yeah. So I guess 2 questions with tariffs. How do you avoid a tariff?
You don't put one on the other country.
No, let's pretend you're Toyota. How do you avoid a tariff coming into America?
Oh, you transfer the money, the cost to the consumer.
No.
Why not?
No. How do you avoid a tariff if you're Toyota?
I'm not sure.
You operate in America.
Exactly.
That's the only way. And again, to Seth's point, and the overall point of the tariffs that Trump plans on implementing is their tool, a leverage tool to be used to make these companies play ball. Like, you can't go over here and operate in China, South Korea, or what have you, get a tax benefit, cheap labor, and then send your product back over here and still mark it up 200-300% just to be able to turn a profit. And like double dipping.
And you're selling cheaper than American-made products, so you're also destroying American companies.
You're double dipping, and you're only benefiting you, the company. You're not benefiting America, the local economy, and we can't let it be done, honestly. That's what's hurt us.
So, sorry if you got to pay more for your Chinese-made goods, but guess what?
That's what's increased the trade deficit with China, is this exact fact.
Like, because y'all spending too much money on Chinese goods instead of American goods, and then you're wondering when these factories close down, you don't have a job, what the hell happened? You bought yourself out of a job.
And they're able to operate freely with cheap labor, send their product over here, and turn an insane profit.
Sure, what you're asking.
You build the car in America.
Oh, okay. Okay.
It's not a trick. It's not a trick question, right?
Yeah.
So let me tell you what's happened. For example, Lyndon Baines Johnson, not my favorite president, put a 25% tariff on pickup trucks. Most people don't know this exists. Toyota actually, per capita, has some of the most popular pickup trucks in the country. Who here knows a Toyota pickup truck? I guarantee some of you guys do. They make all of them in America to avoid that tariff. So when you're the incumbent economic power, tariffs are actually really, really helpful. Now, if you're a small fledgling country such as Portugal, tariffs can be
oh God, the problem, and bro, it made their truck unappetizing. When he put them tariffs on there, they was like, all right, look, I guess we got to make them in here so we can bring them back down to that price that everybody wants. Because let's be real, they brought that truck in there and it got better mileage and all that good stuff, and it was a problem. But if you make it more expensive, then everybody's going to be like, you know what, let me just go to the American-made product instead. Yeah, y'all got it. But if he makes it here, we can go ahead and give you that price that you want. Or you can go ahead and set the price that you want because, well, at the end of the day, at least you're being competitive in our market and not somebody else's. At least the money is circulating in our economy and not the Chinese economy.
Really, really disastrous because you do not have the global reserve currency status. There's been a lot of fraudulent and flimsy economic studies done by major corporations that have made you seem as if free trade is the greatest thing ever. But for example, solar panel tariffs, pickup truck tariffs, even household appliances and electric tariffs, what happens over time is these companies want to do business with us, so they end up bending the knee and building their plant in America, right, which is great for industry, great for our jobs.
It's not a zero-sum game. You realize that when you're building something here that could be better.
Bro, what is a tariff to y'all? Because what are you going to say? It's a tax that's passed down to the consumer? Because that would be wrong. Like, do y'all actually know the literal definition of a tariff? Or, like, because I think some of y'all really think that a tariff is a tax passed down to the consumer. I really think some of y'all are that, like, uninformed. Please let me know what you think a tariff is, because I think that's y'all definition.
Built somewhere else, that money could be spent.
Oh, hold on. No, this is interesting.
Yes.
So, of course, it could be cheaper in China.
Yes.
But wouldn't you rather have Americans be employed to make it?
Well, that's my choice as a consumer. It's not a choice of the government to impose a tax to tell me where to buy it.
Well, actually, Vivek can chip in. This is where we have a moral difference. Yes. I think our government actually has a moral obligation to employ its citizens before the cheapest.
Yes, it is a tax on imported goods. You're right. Anybody says, whoever said it's just a tax, you are severely, is not just a tax. It's a tax on what? You got to say the whole thing for it to be correct.
It's possible good.
So let me
I appreciate you,
who might have been
Kirsten.
following me now. I'm pretty libertarian in my instincts. Let me just ask you a question about this. If another country is applying a tariff to the United States on our own goods, is it fair game to say that we got to play by the same rules in both directions?
Well, I'm a fan, honestly, of turning the other cheek in that sense.
See, so that's where you're going to differ. Because I'm pretty.
Yep, you're gone, bro, because you don't even know what a tariff is. You didn't even give the proper definition. Everybody else gave you the real answer, and you couldn't even. Nah. Sorry, bro. You're done.
Libertarian on a lot
You're just here to troll. You're not even here to learn.
But I think we actually land in a very similar place. Well, I land in the same place as Donald Trump does when you look at his actions as U.S. president. All right? What he did as U.S. president was, because I'm going somewhere with this. First of all, you take another country that puts a tariff on us. What we have been doing is turning the other cheek for too long. And I am a big fan of following our Judeo-Christian values in the country and the way we live our lives, but not in our economic policy to turn the other cheek when we're being slapped by other countries with tariffs on the other side. Because you got to be strong enough to protect who you are. So number one is, with Donald Trump, you actually end up looking at what he ended up doing. Tariffs he slapped down are actually to countries that have been applying those tariffs to us asymmetrically. That's not free trade. That's not playing by the same set of rules. Now you'll see some other cases where tariffs were applied, but they say, oh no, is the other country actually applying a tariff? There's a lot of ways to apply a tariff. One of the ways you apply a tariff is you get state sponsorship. So in those other countries, even in Japan, even in other countries around the TPP partnership, what they do is those governments support their own companies when our own government does not support those industries here. That effectively is a tariff because it makes our own companies less competitive. So in some ways, this whole debate about tariffs and Donald Trump, two things are true about it. One is Biden's kept every one of the tariffs that Donald Trump has, so it's not a choice between the two candidates. Number two is pragmatically, when you look at the way Donald Trump did this, he's a pragmatist. What he ended up doing was just applying a tariff to countries that already applied one to us, directly or indirectly. And even as somebody who leans pretty libertarian, I'll tell you, it is totally fair game for demanding that other countries play by the same set of rules that we do, rather than turning the other cheek economically, which is not the thing I think we should be doing in America. Okay. Thank you, man. Thanks.
Yeah, and I'll just, one more, you do not have a free market, which embedded in the idea of a free market is that you have an independent rule system if one country's tariffing you and you are not. In fact,